You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley alongside Jake Mastroianni after what was a weekend that seemed like it could go from bad to worse for the Atlanta Braves as far as wins and losses are concerned. It was actually quite the opposite. The Braves were able to play some very good games Saturday, Sunday, earn a split of a 4-game set against the Mets. The bad news, though, there was some of that, and it is, of course, that familiar song for the Braves. Yet another verse, though. It is injury, which has struck Atlanta again. Reynaldo Lopez, the latest Brave, to go down. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about this 9-2 win. We'll, of course, get you set up for the Milwaukee Brewers series that follows. And, that little thing called the MLB trade deadline. We'll be talking about that some on this edition of the Postcast as well. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube and Locked On Braves, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse.com, the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. Well, Jake, when last we sat here and talked about what was going on for the Atlanta Braves, it was probably one of, at least there were a couple of these in the series, but one of the worst and sloppiest losses for the Braves that I can think of in the 2024 campaign. It didn't necessarily get better on Friday when they lost that one as well, but with what Spencer Schwellenbach did on Saturday and with what the Braves offense did on Sunday, you have to feel that at least being able to get back to where you came into this series is a win of some sort for this Braves team.
Especially when you're going on the road facing a Mets team that had been hot and you lose those first 2 games and losing that first one the way that you did. To be able to bounce back like that, I think shows a little bit of fight and fire from this Braves team to at least earn a split there. Like you said, at least get back to where you were before the season started. So certainly on the field, as it ends on a positive note for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, the Braves walked into this series with a 1.5-game lead in the wild card. They walk out of this series with a 1.5-game lead in the wild card by virtue of losing 2 to the Mets, then winning 2 against the Mets. But yeah, I mean, you look back at Thursday, and not to rehash that whole thing, but now in hindsight, you think, wow, if you'd found a way to win that 3 out of 4 from the Mets, you'd be feeling a lot different. But what had to happen this weekend was they had to find an answer for what happened Thursday, for what happened Friday. And they did that on Saturday. Spencer Schwellenbach spun a gem. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But Sunday's 9-2 victory for the Braves, you saw something that we've been seeing more of. That's the home run ball flying out of the ballpark. But one man that you needed to see some of that coming from was Matt Olson, homering in back-to-back games, getting the scoring started on Sunday in this win over the New York Mets. That, as I said on social, when he hit the first of his 2 home runs in the series, that's a sight for sore eyes, Jake.
It is. And, 2 opposite ones, too. He hit one where he went the other way, just kind of snuck over the fence. And the one on Sunday, it just felt like 2 months worth of frustration he took out on that baseball as he absolutely destroyed it. And we've talked about it. Everybody's talking about it. You got to have Matt Olson get going. Riley seems to be back on track. Ozuna's been there all year. But you really got to get Matt Olson going, and not just going, getting that power too. So to be able to see him get home runs in back-to-back games, again, hopefully that will help get him going in the right track, because this Braves offense is going to get to a point. Look, it's not going to get to 2023 levels. If you're still hoping for that, I don't know what to tell you at this point. But if this offense is going to be able to at least give this pitching staff some help and allow them to win some of these ball games, you got to have Matt Olson, and you got to have that big, powerful bat that he possesses. So it was good to see that on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, he's got to be a run producer because he's going to hit in the middle of the order somewhere, whether it's cleanup, fifth, whatever the case is. You still need that guy to be knocking in some big runs. He did that on this day. And one of the things that, while, I talked about this a lot on my show, which you were on earlier today on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, but this is not about the 2023 team anymore. I don't think that there's even really a need to have a lot of conversation about that. This is a different year. The numbers tell us where the Braves are this year. The numbers I dug into, though, on this show were kind of shocking. And offensively speaking, and it's not just on Matt Olson, by the way, injuries have taken a big bite out of the Braves, have caused a lot of the regression that we've seen year over year. But I went back to May the 1st, which is a place where a lot of Braves fans would point to and say, that's where everything started to go wrong, the month of May. The Braves, going into Sunday when they scored the 9 runs against the New York Mets, from May the 1st all the way through the start of, again, Sunday's game, they were 28th in Major League Baseball in runs scored. The only worst teams, the Miami Marlins and the Chicago White Sox, and the Marlins were right on their heels. That's just not the Braves that we expected them to be, but that's it's in the past. That's what's happened. That's where they've been. Can they get to a better place? I think both you and I look at the talent on this club and say they certainly should be able to. Getting Matt Olson going would go a long way towards that. Return of Michael Harris could also help out. Whatever happens at the trade deadline, we don't know what that's going to be yet, but there are some guys on this club beyond simply Matt Olson as well that could certainly have a lot to say over the next couple of months by simply getting back to some form of the normal that you would expect from them.
Certainly. And, like you said, there's no reason really comparing this team to 2023. It's just the fact that that team was so historically good and that it's just, as you said, it's been a bottom 5 offense for several months now. It's just crazy to think about. And a lot's happened, as you said, some regression for some players, a lot of injuries. But Orlando Arcia, who's had some really good at-bats here over the last week or so, has been really good. The catcher spot, both Travis d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy have been playing really, really well and getting on base. So that's good to see. And like I said, Marcel and Riley have been doing their thing and have been, leading the middle of the order. So if you get Olson going, you start to feel really good. I know Kelenick's kind of cooled off a good bit here. Duvall, who you had leading off, he had a good weekend for the most part. So you get those guys going. And like I said, with the way this pitching staff is, you just give them, we've said it all year, if you could just give them middle of the road offense, you're not asking them to be the best in baseball again at this point. This pitching staff is clearly what is carrying this team in 2024. If this offense can just get back to being middle of the pack, this team's going to have a lot of success down the road.
Yeah, since May the 1st, the Braves averaging just 3.7 runs per game. That's not a small sample size, obviously. That's about half a season's worth of production there. But can that change over the next couple of months if a lot of the things we just talked about can start to tick in the correct direction? Michael Harris's return, again, some other things that could go right for this Braves offense. We just haven't seen enough of in 2024, that's for sure. Looking at some of the other things that happened in this game, it's hard to talk around it for too long because it seems like we can't go a week without talking about one. But another Braves injury in this one, not great news. Reynaldo Lopez leaving the game after 3 innings. Braves said he was dealing with a forearm issue. He's getting an MRI. We'll know more about it soon. We'll see. By the time that many of you watch this show, we might already have a little bit more info on Reynaldo Lopez. But as the case may be, typically when you hear forearm, you have to imagine that there will be some time off of some degree. What that will be, how long that will be, what the severity of this is, we're all going to find out. But Jake, this is the exact kind of thing that the Braves can ill afford. They've already been through a lot of this. They just lost Max Fried to the IL, even if he's not gone for long. Thinking about being without Fried and Lopez, man, Alex Anthopoulos has got a lot on his mind right now, I'm sure, as he tries to figure out how can I make this club a little bit better. One thing would be, can these guys just stay healthy for a while?
You would love to see that. I mean, it is really tough. And I just talked about the fact that what has carried this team this year has been the starting pitching. And now that starting pitching is starting to take a lot of hits injury wise. And you can't afford that with this offense and the lack of offense that you've gotten. You need to have the starting pitching be able to stay healthy and carry you down the stretch. So hopefully it's nothing major for Reynaldo Lopez, who was able to get through 3 scoreless, had some traffic in second and third innings, but did what he's done all year and be able to navigate that and get through it and leave those runners on base. But then what you saw Dylan Lee getting up, hot and ready to come in, you knew something wasn't right there with Reynaldo Lopez. So certainly hate that. Again, hopefully it's nothing major, can get him back soon. Sounds like Max Fried could be back soon, but Alex Anthopoulos is out here trying to make moves, and it's just hard because you keep getting these injuries and what you need to do continues to shift and change. But just hate it for Reynaldo Lopez coming back as a starter, as good as he has been, all-star season. Again, just really hoping for his sake and for the Braves that it's nothing major.
Yeah, I mean, best season of his career, bar none. And doing it again back in the starting rotation, he was doing a lot of things the Braves needed him to do and also proving to himself that, hey, I can go back to being a starting pitcher and be successful, because he certainly has been. So we'll see how this all plays out. I think Austin Riley said it best, though, after the game, because the Braves have to be wondering collectively, when is this going to stop? Where does it end? How many more of these things can we absorb? I know talking to him a week ago, he was asked about, hey, the Ozzie Albies and Max Fried news, there's got to be another gut punch. And he said, man, we've had a lot of gut punches this year, and that may be the understatement of the show, an understatement of the season for the Braves. I'm sure we don't need to get into the trade discussions right here. The starting pitching depth, though, certainly is concerning. But one guy who is strengthening the rotation, Spencer Schwellenbach. Saturday, best start of his young career, 7 innings of 2-hit ball, no runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts. Jake, of all the question marks and all the frustrating stories that we've talked about for this Braves team, Spencer Schwellenbach is one of the major bright spots, maybe perhaps at least he's up there as far as brightest spots for the Braves this year. And this one from an unexpected and unknown and unquantified category as well.
Yeah, it's certainly been one of the better surprises for me in this Braves season, which has been filled with a lot of disappointment. Look, he had AJ Smith-Shawver in front of him, Hurston Waldrop in front of him, and those guys, might be there had they not gotten hurt. But Schwellenbach, jumping up and be able to come up there and stick and prove that he can belong and growing at the spot too. We've talked about a lot the Braves being able to stick with him, even though he's had some of his ups and downs, just recognizing it's a kid with really good stuff, really good mound presence, but he's learning on the fly here at the big league level. And so he's going to have outings like this. He feels like a part of the rotation for a long time, which the Braves needed some answers on that, not knowing what's going to happen in the offseason. So couldn't be more thrilled with what they've gotten out of Spencer Schwellenbach.
Yeah, Spencer Schwellenbach with 65 innings under his belt starting the season, beginning in Double-A, had to feel like not just a couple of pitching prospects like AJ Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop in front of him, but Bryce Elder, some of the other pitchers who were in Triple-A, Gwinnett, maybe even at some point it was the return of Ian Anderson and Huascar Noah. Like, you just didn't know at that point in spring training, especially when Schwellenbach was going to step in, when he was going to get his opportunity. It wasn't anything certain about 2024 being that time, but it's lined up. He's making the most of it. And when you watch the way he pitches and you hear the way he talks about it, it feels like he's been doing this for a very long time, which is not the case when you go look at that resume. But Brian Snitker told me mound presence. Spencer Schwellenbach's got an awful lot of that. We, meanwhile, have an awful lot more to talk about in this edition of the Braves Postcast. We'll dig more into Sunday. The Reynaldo Lopez news obviously is what it is. We'll also go through the starting lineup and some of the things that we're starting to see here lately, some good trends for the Braves, and, of course, get you set for the series that begins in Milwaukee on Monday. All of that is coming your way as the Braves Postcast continues. Summer travel is heating up, especially travel for baseball games, so it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities, and with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today at Booking.com on the site or the Booking.com app. We all love sports, and we love them so much that we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down in other sports, we're getting fewer games there, but all the sports, they may not be sportsing like we want them to, but we got a lot of baseball going on right now, and FanDuel lets us keep up with the sports whenever we want. All I need to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Well, Jake, let's talk a little bit about Sunday's game and actually, I guess, the whole weekend for the Braves, which turned out to be a pretty good one after Thursday, then Friday, of course, weren't going the way that the Braves needed it to, or needed this whole weekend to play out, really. But it turned around, and it turned around thanks to some great pitching on Saturday. Spencer Schwellenbach in charge of that. And then, of course, the Braves offense putting a 4 spot up in the 4th inning, tacking on a few more, 4 home runs in their 9-2 victory over the Mets. Braves now back up to 56-48 on the year. Mets now 55-50 after the loss on Sunday. Winning pitcher Dylan Lee in relief. You mentioned that he jumped in after Reynaldo Lopez went down. 3 scoreless innings for Reynaldo, but done after that. And a forearm issue that the Braves are having checked out, and he's set to undergo an MRI upon coming back to Atlanta here. So that's going to be, I think, just the news that you just kind of have to hold your breath, keep your fingers crossed, whatever it is that you do when you're hopeful that there won't be bad news. But as we talked about earlier, the Braves have gotten a lot of that on the injury front. And, with the Max Fried news after the All-Star break, hearing from Fried, hearing from Brian Snitker, they didn't feel like it was altogether serious, but better safe than sorry. Not so sure we feel the exact same way about this Reynaldo Lopez news, especially since it happened during a start and he's flying all the way back to Atlanta to get this MRI.
Yeah, that obviously doesn't give you good vibes right there with Reynaldo Lopez. Like, if you want to try to look on the positive side, and we kind of said this with Max Fried too, at least it's happening now, and you only got 48 hours to deal with it, but you at least have some time to go get another starting pitcher if that is more of a need. And look, no matter what happens, I think it's definitely a need, because after Tuesday, there's really not an opportunity to go out there and make a big move. So again, we'll see what happens with the MRI. I think they said they plan to get those results on Monday. So again, we'll wait till we get the official news there. But just hate it for Reynaldo, like I said earlier, just making this jump back from reliever to starter, showing that he can do it, doing it well, so well that he made an all-star game and leading the National League in ERA. But just hope it's nothing major there and that the Braves can get him back soon.
Yeah, the Braves certainly need him back. He's done an awful lot for them over the first 4 months of the season. They would love to have him for this final 2. And, of course, October. We don't know how that's all going to play out just yet. But, again, fingers crossed that Reynaldo Lopez won't be down for long. Bullpen did a great job after he was forced out of the game. The 2 scoreless innings from Dylan Lee, Pierce Johnson, A.J. Minter with scoreless innings as well. And the Mets did get a couple of ninth-inning runs. But other than that, I think that you have to just look at overall. When you're asked to cover 6 innings from your bullpen, you got to be pretty happy when they're able to put up 2-run balls. So they basically got the quality start from the bullpen and the 3 innings from Reynaldo Lopez to close it down. If you kind of reverse engineer what you normally think about would be the way that you'd like to line things up as far as the starter reliever breakdown in innings.
Yeah, great job by the bullpen. Dylan Lee especially coming in there, getting those 2 innings, kind of bridging that gap. Really for a starter today, if you can get through 5 innings, great. 6 innings, even better. And then you usually turn it over to your bullpen at that point anyway. So for Dylan Lee to kind of get them through that 5th inning, and then you got your guys that you can use at the back end. Great play by Ramon Laureano in center field too, in the middle of that game. Want to mention that because it was a 4-0 game at that point. He throws them out at home, obviously gets the out there, kind of ends the threat of that inning. Would have made it a 4-1 game, so that certainly helped. But again, great job by that bullpen coming in. And then the offense adding runs later on. So you didn't have to use, Joe Jimenez and Raisel Iglesias to close this one out. You get to save those guys. So great job all around.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Ramon Laureano because when you looked at game 1 of this series, I'm sure that's a night of Braves baseball or a night in a Braves uniform he would like to forget as soon as possible. He gets back in there, gets that opportunity for redemption, makes some nice plays, of course, throwing out a runner at home, hitting a home run, one of the 4 homers for the Braves on the day. It's a little redemption. Had to feel good to get back on the right side of things for him. And again, the Braves did hit 4 home runs in this game. You had Matt Olson hitting the 3-run shot that got things really started in the 4th inning. You had Orlando Arcia in the 7th. Austin Riley went deep in the 7th. And then the 8th inning, it was Ramon Laureano as well. So the Braves racked up 10 home runs in this series, Jake. That's something that's good to see. Of course, they're still trying to figure out some things with their lineup. We saw Jared Kelenic get the day off today. The starter left-hander, as Peterson was on the mound, and Adam Duvall had some success against him. 0 for Adam. But if you go back and look for Jared Kelenic, things had just kind of cooled off for him so much that a day off might be a good thing. He was in a 3 for 59 slide. So maybe a good thing to go ahead and hit the reset button there and have Adam Duvall get that crack against a lefty starter.
Yeah, made a lot of sense there. Brian Snitker playing with the options that he has. I mean, the hand that he's dealt right now, it's not necessarily great. So I can't really fault him for playing the numbers. Adam Duvall, one thing he's done really well this year is hit left-handed pitching. And Jared Kelenic been struggling, as you mentioned, especially struggling against left-handed pitching. So it sounded like a good time to kind of get him out of there. And while, that particular move didn't work, at least the rest of the lineup really got going and had a big day and kind of helped pick up this offense.
Yeah, and you'll take what you can get when it comes to trying to figure things out these days. If you're Brian Snitker, he mentioned a couple days ago, maybe going to have to think outside the box. And I think that we might have spent some time wondering, what does that mean? Does that mean leadoff hitter Austin Riley? Does that mean leadoff hitter Marcell Ozuna? I mean, I don't know. It probably does not mean that because you need those guys to be hitting with runners on base. You hope they can. But, Austin Riley and Marcell Ozuna swinging the bat extremely well. Braves as a team hitting 10 home runs in this series. The Matt Olson show, 2 home runs, so back-to-back days. I couldn't believe until Mark Bowman had posted it. I didn't realize that was the first time this year that Matt Olson's homered in back-to-back games. That, to me, one of the craziest things coming out of this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at Matt Olson's stats is just crazy. You would not think that with the guy who, is coming off the season that he had. And even still this year, I know the strikeouts are up, but still hits the ball extremely hard. It's just, we talked about it. He's just been a tick off of everything. You see him fouling balls right off or getting under them or just on top of them. It's been a frustrating season for Matt Olson. You saw it after the first at bat, even on Sunday, slamming down the helmet. You can see the frustration for him. He's working hard. He's trying to get back to that level of play that he knows he should be at. But, it's a small sample size, but you look at it over his last 6 games now, it's a 925 OPS, got those 2 home runs here over the weekend. So again, hopefully trending in the right direction, got some hits some little singles here or there to help that batting average. And then you get the power over the weekend, which again, is what we really need to see from Matt Olson.
I mean, we know he's capable of going on, an absolute torrid hot streak and hitting a whole bunch of home runs. That, of course, is what his job is. I mean, Matt Olson said when he came over to the Braves, if I remember correctly, when I hit the ball on the ground, like, that's not a win. So you know what he's trying to do. It's not a secret. And that's where he is able to do the things that he needs to, is when he is driving the ball. And hopefully what we saw over the weekend is a good indicator of that. And again, as the Braves head out of New York, all things considered, going out 1.5 games up in the wild card the same way they came in, Jake, that's not too bad for this Braves team, because it felt like things were ready to fall off the rails or go completely off the tracks, whichever way you want to phrase it, after this first couple of games of the series.
Yeah, it was not a good start, but you look back on it now, and yeah, you're still upset you lost that Thursday game because you had a chance to win the series. But I mean, the way the first 2 games went, it looked like the Mets were just going to kind of steamroll the Braves and take any momentum really in that National League wild card race. And now you look back at it and you say, Braves should have won this series, could have very easily won this series. So I think that hopefully puts a little bit more confidence back in this Braves team to, put them in their rightful spot back up at the National League wild card, let them know, hey, they are still a really good team. They can compete with even the hottest teams out there, because that was the Mets coming into the series. And that offense too. Yeah, I know they had the big game on Friday. They had that big inning against Charlie Morton, but outside of that, the pitching really just shut down that Met offense that had been on fire. So again, I think you come out of the weekend looking much better, feeling a lot better about yourselves.
Yeah, no, you certainly should. And now the Braves need to keep that momentum going as they roll into Milwaukee to face a Brewers team that's kind of been taking it on the chin a little bit here lately as well. But they're in first place in the National League Central. We'll talk a little bit about that series, some about the trade deadline, and of course, some more injury updates, because perhaps Max Fried could be back by the end of the week. We'll get to all of that as the Braves postcast continues. Get supplies from the site that is made for the skilled trade. SupplyHouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, you can get support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM, or order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Well, Jake, their road trip is going to continue for the Braves here as they roll into Milwaukee to face the first-place Brewers. Braves will be home after that for 4 games against the Marlins, and then they're going to have what I believe is referred to as an off day, which I'm sure that they're looking forward to after that. But still a week's worth of baseball to play between now and then. Less than 48 hours to go before the trade deadline. Obviously, it's worth talking about this. I know you and I did some of that earlier today, but it seems like, given the Reynaldo Lopez news, given some doubt, at least, it has to kind of be in the back of your mind about Max Fried. If you're going to go do something, Alex Anthopoulos knows that time is right now.
Yeah, he has to. Obviously, time is running out here, but I got to imagine Alex is going to do something probably to address the offense, and I think you have to address the pitching staff at this point, even if you feel like Max Fried is healthy and going to come back, and even if you get the best possible news on Reynaldo Lopez, I just don't think you can go these final 2 months without just having more depth in your rotation. When you have a guy in Spencer Schwellenbach who looks great, but he's thrown 65 professional innings coming into the season. You got a guy in Chris Sale who might win the NL Cy Young, but he hasn't thrown a lot of innings over the last several years because of injuries himself. I don't think you can let this trade deadline go by without getting some more pitching depth, even though you do have an Ian Anderson, a Huascar Ynoa, an AJ Smith-Shaw, or you have these guys and all these depth, but I would think that Alex would want to go out and get some, veteran proven guys to at least help give you some innings to get through the rest of this regular season, and hopefully somebody that you could need in a potential postseason series. But obviously you got to get that offense figured out. You got to have to at least find one bat to help upgrade you in the outfield as well.
Yeah, and I think, and based on, who you talk to or who's talking about it, maybe the Braves weren't putting so much of a focus on starting pitcher. Yes, it would be nice if the deal came together. It could make some sense. And even if you get somebody who's just a proven veteran that can be a bit of a hedge against some of the injury concerns that you may have over the final couple of months, that would have been helpful. But now with the questions about Reynaldo Lopez, it does seem like you probably are going to amp up that level of concern, or the urgency, I guess you could say, of maybe trying to find that right deal before the deadline for a pitcher. But I'm with you. I do still think offense is where they need to do that upgrading. The outfield seems like the most logical place. And I think they could look up the middle and see, is there a veteran, versatile infielder that has some offensive upside who could help you out there? Because Ozzie Albies is not walking back in through that door, it doesn't sound like, until mid to late September. Nacho Alvarez, it's early, but it does seem like this might be a case of a 21-year-old kid that was escalated through the minor league system very quickly and is going to have to learn on the job and, face the thing that everybody does when you make the jump to the big leagues. It's very hard to get there. It's even harder to stay there. And for Alvarez, I'm sure he'd like to start seeing those hits coming at a bit of a higher rate.
Yeah, he would. And it's the strikeouts that are pretty alarming, because it's a guy that's never really struggled with strikeouts at the minor league level, but it is a huge jump, and he's 21, and it's a guy that probably got rushed up. There's, I'm not putting this into his long-term, outcome with the Braves, obviously getting rushed up the way that he was, but it just feels like, he's a young kid, probably got brought up a little too early, and he seems a bit overmatched right now at the big league level. Hopefully that all changes. I'd love to see him continue to get some chances. I think very highly of him, and I think he has a very good future. But as you said, you may have to look to upgrade at that position, because Ozzie, can you get him back, before the last couple of weeks of the season? And at that point, what is he going to look like after being out for 2 months?
Yeah, no, it's a big question. And, how much is he going to be able to, give you, and does he get back in the timetable in which the Braves have set forth? I mean, it's, you hope so. That's what you're anticipating. But again, you're backed up against this trade deadline where if you want to get somebody who can help you for the rest of the season and maybe even into October, you got to get that deal done before Tuesday. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of choices the Braves are faced with and what kind of deals they're able to find. Max Fried eligible to come off the IL on Friday. He has been long tossing. Again, we talked a little bit about the fact that you might want some insurance there. It doesn't have to be a major name to me. A veteran starter who can cover those innings, who can give you the kind of starts that allow your bullpen to stay in the position it's been. Because, Jake, as much as we've talked about the starting pitching and their success, the fact they've been able to cover these innings, I think, is what has kept Atlanta's bullpen from being overworked really at any point this season. They have had a very good go of it. And the big reason why is because even though some of the starters may not have been the guys that you expected, and there have been some question marks, by and large, this has been an incredibly effective rotation, and that has trickled down to the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much expected 6-7 innings out of your starters almost every night and haven't had to cover a lot of that. So it's been great kind of protecting this bullpen and keeping them fresh. That's going to be tested possibly in this next series, especially with what happened on Sunday and having to cover a lot of innings there. But again, as you said, it doesn't have to be a top of the rotation guy, and I don't think it will be. I don't think the Braves have the resources necessarily to go out and get that, but to at least get, a mid to back the rotation guy to just give you some depth for their rotation, I could be very important for this team down the stretch just to cover those innings.
Yeah, definitely could be. The Atlanta rotation not exactly settled right now with no Max Fried and the question marks around Reynaldo Lopez. So much so that I'm going to tell you the probables for the Brewers series. It's Grant Holmes making his first major league start. That'll come on Monday, to be determined in Game 2. We've seen that guy listed a lot this year. And, of course, Chris Sale is going to go in Game 3 for the Braves. That Game 1, though, will be happening on Monday at 8:10 p.m. Eastern time. Grant Holmes has been a really nice story for the Braves this year. He has eaten some innings, and he's done so in a quality manner. 2.70 ERA thus far. Colin Ray will be on the mound for the Brewers. He's 9-3 with a 3.60. Not expecting Grant Holmes to throw 5, 6, 7 innings here, Jake, but a cool opportunity for him. And if he can just go out there and do the kind of thing he's been doing, the Braves bullpen seems to be pretty capable of piecing some things together.
Yeah, not ideal timing, though, with what happened with Reynaldo on Sunday, obviously, and having to cover those innings. That's why it was really big that the offense kind of stretched things out late and saved some of your bullpen arms there. But if Grant Holmes can get you through 3 innings, 4 would be fantastic. But, to be able to get through a lineup once, maybe 1.5 times, I think it would be the goal and be ideal for the Braves in this one. Grant Holmes has been an incredible story, as you've mentioned. So would love to see him continue that and have some success, but need him to just give you as many bullets as he can on a Monday to try to save this bullpen and keep the Braves in the game.
Yeah, Braves and Brewers start their 3-game series on Monday. It's an 8:10 p.m. Eastern time pitch in Milwaukee. It's Grant Holmes, it's Colin Ray, and the Braves, of course, want to carry that momentum that they picked up over the weekend right into the next stop on their road trip. And they have a 4-game set against the Miami Marlins waiting on the other side as they'll be coming back home later this week. That wraps us up, though, on this edition of the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Leave us those likes and comments. Share the show with a friend and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, Atlanta was able to rally this weekend, split that series with the Mets, take back the top spot in the wild card. Next stop is Milwaukee. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time. And until then, so long, everyone.